Let's explore the MarginFi ecosystem. Begin. MarginFi is a lending and borrowing platform on Solana, enabling users to deposit assets and borrow against their collateral. Pretty standard lending protocol. MarginFi is aiming to be one of the main apps of Solana where you can borrow and lend most of the assets within the Solana ecosystem. And they also have their own LST. The LST means liquid staked token, which means you can stake your SOL in order to earn some of the rewards from the network. And in return, you get a token. They call it the LST token. And that token is constantly accruing these fees that Solana is gathering. If you are familiar with Bitcoin, that Bitcoin has a block reward. Every block, there's a reward that goes to the miners. In the case of chains that are proof of stake, Solana in this case, or Ethereum, the rewards go to the people that are doing staking. So you can use a platform like MarginFi to stake with them, and then you get this token back, and the token is constantly accruing value against SOL. So if you think that SOL is going to go up, the staked version of SOL is going to go up more so than SOL itself. Please ask any questions in the comments if something of what I'm not saying is not sinking in. This is a little bit of complicated stuff. Okay, here we go. So the LST is the liquid staking token. It is the highest natural yield available from any LST on Solana by a lot. Of course, this is what they say. They will always claim that, but actually I'm looking right now, the projected API is 8.2. For what I've seen so far in Solana, it is true. Now, there's other things that you can do in MarginFi. You can swap tokens. If you've seen our video on Jupiter, basically MarginFi just integrated Jupiter within their app. So you can do swaps using Jupiter without having to leave the MarginFi app, which is great. And for example, if you wanted to unstake your SOL, an easy way to do it would just to swap your LST for SOL. That would be the easiest way to do it. Then we already seen stake, swap. You can just change any tokens that you like between each other. The bridge is to go out, in and out from other chains. So you can see we can bring tokens from different chains. And in this case is Ethereum, but we can see Binance, Polygon, Avalanche, Arbitrum. So we can come into Solana by selecting a chain outside. Or if we choose Solana to be our initial chain, we can bridge out. And we can go into, for example, Polygon. And all we would need to do is here put how much SOL we want to bridge out and how much, for example, Matic, which is the native token of Polygon. And you would need to select a different wallet because the Solana wallets and the Ethereum wallets are different. So yeah, we just need a wallet that is compatible with the network that you want to send your tokens to. So that's the bridge. We've seen the swap. We've seen the stake. The last option is the lending. And this is to lend and to borrow as well. So here you have all the different assets. You have the, right now is in lend, but if you click here, we can swap into borrow, and you can tell because the numbers turn red. When you're in lending, it's green because it means you're depositing those tokens, and those tokens are then available for somebody else to borrow. And the borrower pays the lender. So you can play both sides of the game. And here you can see how much you get paid by supplying a token into the pool itself. And we can see that, for example, SOL pays 2% per year, Jito SOL pays 0.1, and that number depends on how many people on the other side are borrowing. So it's going to fluctuate in real time, driven fully by market demand. One thing to notice is that you see these little logos that appear here, like this one, and this one. And they appear there because these are being subsidized. At the moment, this token is the Blaze token. The Blaze token is giving away free Blaze tokens to anyone that holds the B Sol, because that's their version of the liquid staking Sol. And MSol is doing the same thing with their own token, which is the MNDE. And this is by the Marinade protocol that we will look into in a different episode. But yes, those two are the only ones that are being subsidized. And that's why, for example, BSOL, which is a staking token, has a lot more earnings than the GiroSol, which is another liquid state token. Or even the LST, the one that we just minted, has very little earnings because it's not being incentivized at this stage. Now, the next thing that you will see is that the weight. Here you see a percentage. This percentage means that, for example, if I deposit $100 of GiroSol, I can borrow against it 65% of the value. So if I deposit $100, I can only borrow 65. And if I go over, then I enter into liquidation risk, which you should never do. Then the deposit, of course, is how much people have deposited at this stage right now. This is all information that is on chain. So that's the beautiful thing, is that we can see everything in real time. So at the moment, there is more than 1 million, which is crazy. And of those million, 973,000 are being able to borrow. It's crazy. And it has a limit of 2 million. So if there was 2 million here, then we could not deposit anymore into the lending pool. It has a maximum amount, a cap, and it cannot go higher. And the utilization rate is the difference between how many people are lending versus how much people are borrowing. So at the moment, this one, for example, has 9%, so it's pretty low. But you can see that Sol is 41%. So that's a lot of people are borrowing Sol, and USDC has 84%. So that one is almost tapped out. And yeah, and you can see there's a lot of tokens that you can choose from to both borrow and lend. We can see here that, for example, Jupiter has reached the limits. So we cannot deposit any more Jupiter tokens. There's a bunch of tokens that you can borrow and lend. Dust has also reached the limit. Stake Sol is very close to the limit. And then the isolated pools, these are for more risk tokens. And there's a bunch of restrictions that, for example, you cannot borrow 2 different tokens from the isolated pool because that means too much risk. So if you want to do the isolated pools, you have to be careful, and you have to be more careful in general. And there's a bunch of more tokens there. If you see here in the corner, we have the light and pro version. So if you close to light, you can there's a lot less information. It's much more restrictive, but you can just choose the token that you want and either lend or borrow. I like to see the pro version because then you can actually see all the information. It's much, much clearer. The last thing I'll show you is let's take a look at the points system. The point is a way for the protocol to judge who is using it and who is using it the most. And you get points for everything that you do. For example, if you lend assets, you're going to get 1 point per dollar of the asset that you're lending per day. And if you're borrowing, you actually get 4 points per day. So, of course, for the platform, it's much more important that you borrow against the assets than you actually lend them. And then you can do referrals and earn a 10% of any user that you refer. And then, of course, so it's not only the actions that you take, but also the time. So it's not just interacting with the protocol, but it's interacting with the protocol over time. And that's how they determine who gets the airdrop and who does not. At the moment, we have 0 points, and the highest one has, I think that's 2 billion points. But that's all you can do in the platform. You can lend, borrow, stake, swap, and bridge in and out of the ecosystem.